On today's show, Laura Heywood interviews.
Currently playing Olaf in Frozen the Musical, Ryann Redmond. Welcome to Laura Heywood Interviews. I'm Laura Heywood, and today's guest is one of my favorites. I met her in a bar following her final performance in If Then in March 2015. I had entered the If Then lottery, lost, and tweeted that I was going to project positive energy into the universe and assume something awesome would happen that night. I ended up going bar hopping, and at the end of the night, there was Ryann, along with her castmates Joe Aaron Reed and Gabrielle Ruiz. I believe I yelled, "Oh my gosh, Bridget!" which was her character's name in Bring It On, the cheerleading-themed musical co-written by Lin-Manuel Miranda and Amanda Green, in which Ryann made her Broadway debut. Luckily, she forgave me for getting her name wrong and fangirling out. This was just 1 month after I had my big reveal. You may remember that my online alter ego, Broadway Girl NYC, was anonymous for 6 years before I was invited to do a TED Talk revealing my identity. Ryann and I had followed each other on Twitter, so we were both kind of excited to meet each other, not to mention the fact that we were both in enhanced emotional states, me from the bar hopping and her from all the closing night feels. And we've been friends ever since. I was actually supposed to see Ryann perform in Frozen on Saturday night, but as you may have heard, there was a major New York City blackout and all of the shows were canceled. So let's start there. Ryann Redmond, welcome to Laura Heywood Interviews.
Thank you. Hi, Laura.
Hi. So I've heard only amazing things about you as Olaf, but sadly my ticket was canceled on Saturday.
You'll never know. Well, until you come back.
I definitely will be there. Let's talk about the blackout.
It was crazy.
Were you inside the theater?
Yeah, I was inside because we had a matinee that morning.
Right.
And so I had a little rehearsal for a video I'm doing tomorrow, actually. And then I just ran out to grab a salad. I came back and it was around 7:15. And when I entered the theater, I entered on the side where I walk across the stage to get to the dressing room. And I think right before then the power had flickered a little bit, so they were having to reset all the boards, and all of our crew was doing their presets and everything, and everything seemed like a little backed up, and I was like, oh, interesting. I'm sure, I didn't think anything of it. And then I went up to my dressing room and was eating my salad, and then all of a sudden everything just shut off. And luckily it was super sunny outside, and I'm on the 4th floor, so
you
I
have
had
a window.
some daylight. Yeah. But like air conditioning, lights just out, and we were like, and then one of our cast favorites, Nicholas Ward, started just like screaming down the stairs, like starting a parade of just like chanting because
what
he's
was he
so
chanting?
silly. Who knows? Whoever knows what Nicholas Ward is chanting? But him and the swings were like parading down the stairs, and then our stage manager came out and was like, guys, I'm not trying to kill the fun, but I need to hear what's happening right now. It was actually really funny.
Did you think it was theater specific, or did you have a sense right away that it was like a citywide thing?
I think I thought it was theater specific because when I walked in, they were dealing with the power out or the stuff on the stage. But then I sort of kind of felt it was full blown because everything went out, like AC, lights, like just full blackout in the building. And then we kind of hung around a little bit, and it was half hour at this point, and we were like, what's happening here?
And half the cast wasn't even there yet, right?
Yeah, there was probably like 3/4 of us in the building because I think it happened around like 7:15.
I just saw a video of Bobby Creighton and Patty Murin outside, and Bobby was pointing his camera at Patty going, look, if she's not in there, show's not happening.
Right, exactly.
Because I don't think they could even get to the stage door.
No, well, because we were inside, and then I guess all of the backup power that the theater has.
Like
and
the generators.
Yeah, the generators and stuff. That was going to go out in 15 minutes, no matter what. So they just got us out of the building so that we weren't in there without anything. And then we were just out on the streets of New York with all of the patrons of every Broadway show. And it was crazy because I was like, this is the moment that you realize how many people are actually inside these buildings in New York. Like it was turmoil, not turmoil. That's being a little dramatic, but just everyone. We were out with the audience of Phantom and our show and literally every other show on the block.
What the Constitution means to me and Mockingbird. I was out there too. I actually was looking for you guys to see if I could spot you, but we complain about how crowded Times Square is, but it has never been like this.
It took a new turn.
The only time I've ever seen a crowd that dense was at the Women's March in Washington, D.C.,
really?
Where we were joking that it was no longer a march, but we were going to stand up for what we believed in because everyone was just standing still. So we were no longer marching, we were standing up. And yeah, I actually posted a 10-minute long video just wandering the streets to YouTube. Right when I got home, I tried to broadcast it live on Periscope because I knew that people would be wondering what was going on. But because everyone was on their phones,
Yeah, the service was
I couldn't get service.
shoddy.
So I just filmed it on my phone. I uploaded it to YouTube, and like a bunch of news outlets used it. NPR interviewed me about what it was like to be there. I know. I was like, oh, I don't mind getting. I got like
free press.
55 new YouTube subscribers, so I'm not mad at that.
The coveted YouTube subscriber.
Tell me about it. As the only social media that's at all monetizable, every one of those subscribers helps.
Yeah.
So what did you end up doing after that? Did you just go home?
Yeah, well, I live about 9 blocks from the theater, so everybody, like Noah, who plays Kristoff, Adam, who plays Sven, Ann Sanders, who plays our queen, like, I was like, anyone can come over to my house.
Oh, good.
You know, everyone didn't know if the subways were working, and I think there was a lot of trouble with pretty much all public transportation. So,
yeah, because also the streets were not, I don't think they were officially closed.
No, there were cabs still driving through 44th Street, which was also crazy because there was just seas of people, and they were just honking and honking and honking and trying to get through.
I know. And then I saw, but at some portions of 8th Avenue were empty because of all the emergency services vehicles. And I got freaked out because I didn't really know what had happened. I guess it was a transformer that blew or some kind of manhole issue. As far as I've heard, there weren't any major injuries.
I haven't heard any.
But when I heard all those sirens, I was like, oh no, Uptown is on fire.
I know. I think that was mostly because I feel like a lot of people got stuck in elevators and stuff. So the fire department was full force just trying to get everyone out. But I live on the 4th floor of the building, so brought my friends over. We just had some rosé and chilled with the lights out and candle lit. And
that sounds kind of awesome.
I know, it was really fun. And then the power came back on around like 9:30 or 10, and all the lights came back on. We're like, oh man, we really like. So we turned all the lights back off. It was super fun. We actually had to talk to each other, and no one was on their phone. Shocking, but it was fun. And my friend Tony Lepage, who's in Come From Away, and his girlfriend, who I'm good friends with, Courtney, they came over. So it was like a big old Broadway hangout at my house. So it was super fun.
I wish you guys had made some video.
Well, we did. It was completely dark.
Oh,
my friend Brooke got the guitar out, and we were trying to sing some songs, but
that's awesome. Did you put it on social or?
It was on my story.
So I missed it.
Sorry.
I am so bad at stories.
That's really the only thing I do. Well, I mean,
You've got some beautiful photos on Insta.
Selfies and stories.
Well, I mean, I've got to get better at stories. It just feels like I'm trying to spend less time on my phone, and being on my phone is kind of my job. You know, there's a lot of content creation. So to limit the time, I don't consume as much.
That's smart.
But that means that I lose stuff like that. Put it in your story highlights.
Okay.
That's
something I haven't figured out yet, so I'll have to get on that.
Yeah. Well, let me know when you do.
Okay.
So let's talk about you being Olaf in Frozen. This is your 3rd Broadway show. Fourth. Yes, of course. I forgot about Margaritaville.
I know. Some people did.
I did see it at least twice.
Oh, thank you.
And I've seen you in all of your Broadway shows at least twice.
Amazing.
Oh, except Frozen, because
I
was supposed to go. I've seen Frozen multiple times. I think I've seen Frozen like 6 times.
Yes.
And by the way, Frozen's also going to be touring.
I know, so exciting.
People are going to be able to see it all over the place.
Yes.
But to see you, they have to come to New York.
Exactly.
And, you know, a lot's been made about the fact that you're like the first female Olaf, and that this is like a gender bending role and stuff. And while, you know, I do know that Olaf has male pronouns, it doesn't really strike me as that crazy to have a woman playing this part. It's not like he's a super gendered character.
Right. And we actually didn't change his gender, so he's still a boy. So I just like to think of it as I'm giving my voice to this character, this beloved cartoon character. So we still call him a boy. He's still a boy in the show. I just am pigtailed behind him.
But they did change the key you're singing it in, right? How does that work? Like, is it a full octave different?
No, I think we went up maybe a third or something. I'm not exactly sure of the exact key, but Stephen Remus and Brian Yusufer, our fantastic music team, had to completely rearrange the orchestra parts and, rewrite all of those charts for our amazing orchestra. And I imagine it was a little bit of a mind boggle for them who they've been playing it for a year in a certain key. It was a little bit of a rejiggering of their brains to
What
to
about the
play it
other
differently.
singers? Do you sing everything solo?
Yeah. Well, In Summer is solo, and then I have a few other singing parts in the show that miraculously the octave up sits in a very comfy place for me.
Oh, great.
Only In Summer the key was changed.
Got it.
Yeah.
Man, I can only imagine that there were some jokes about Olaf melting during that blackout.
Oh, there's always Olaf melting jokes.
I know.
melting
I
on
actually made one. I
stage.
ran into you on the street the other day, and afterward, I was like, literally, like that face, like slapping my forehead emoji. That's like, ugh. I ran into you on the street, and I was like, hey, I think we were both on the phone maybe, and you were like, okay, see you next week. And I was like, try not to melt. And then I just was like, oh,
Too late.
man.
It's okay.
Why do I have to be that person?
It's okay. I'm used to it now.
I know.
It's not a
but
bad.
I always want to say
reference.
something clever, say something that somebody hasn't said a million times. But I guess there are only so many snowman jokes.
Exactly.
Plus, it just means we're paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we go back to your childhood, you started musical theater around 13, right? Mm-hmm. And it was Andrea McCardle that you
Yep.
idolized.
Well, the school musical was Annie.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Live on radio. I have
Cough
something
it
in my
up,
throat.
baby.
Okay, it's going on. That's the coffee. They were doing Annie, and I wanted to be Annie, so I just tried to copy Andrea McCardle off of the Broadway cast album, and I tried to emulate her, and then I auditioned, and I got the role of Mr. Bundles.
So this is not your first male role.
No,
that you've
who
played.
knew? It was foreshadowing.
Yeah. And then I love the story, jumping ahead a little bit. I love the story of how badly you wanted to go to NYU and how it almost didn't happen.
I know.
Can
It
you
was
share that story with us?
Yeah, totally. Once I played Mr. Bundles, I moved on to a little bit larger roles in high school, luckily. And I caught the bug, and I was working with a foundation that's very near and dear to my heart called the Broadway Dreams Foundation. And they were based in Atlanta, and it was their inaugural year. And they had an amazing staff of Broadway performers. And this woman, Kate Guyton, was one of the teachers, and she's
Isn't
actually
she the one that Avenue Q?
Yeah, she's who Kate Monster is based off of. Yeah. And I just loved everything about her. I loved her energy. I loved her spirit. And she was also a teacher at NYU, so I just got it in my little 15-year-old brain. And I was like, well, that's where I need to go. Mm-hmm. I had never been to New York at all. And so I went through high school doing a ton of amazing musicals, and I applied to NYU, much to my mom's sort of dismay, just because, we were a fairly middle-class family, and NYU at that time, and now it's, I bet, even more, it was $55,000 a year.
Plus, aren't there 8 kids in your family?
I grew up in a house with 6 kids. I have 7 siblings total. Yeah, so there's 8 of us dispersed throughout various marriages. Uh-huh. But in my formative years, it was 6 of us.
So just the idea of budgeting for
Right.
groceries, I can
Right.
imagine is difficult.
Exactly.
Much less
Yeah.
an education like that.
Exactly. But she ended up letting me audition, and I got in, and still she was just like, this is so expensive. Mm-hmm. And I just would cry and cry and cry and cry. And finally, my uncle, who is actually, he's also my godfather, technically my great uncle because he's my grandma's brother. But he's always been such an angel in my life and has helped me a little bit along the way each way. And he got us a trip to New York to go visit. I was just like, let me go to there's an accepted students event in April of that year of 2007. And we went up there and I walked into the financial aid office just to see, because I don't know at that point why, like, we didn't know beforehand what my financial aid was, but for some reason you had to walk into the office to find out. Maybe I was just naive and didn't know how to look it up.
This was April of 2007 to start in September of 2007?
Yeah.
So that was pretty close to when you had to give them an answer.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was my first time in New York and ever. And my mom was like, "You were a kid in a candy store." And no, she was like, "I knew that was it. That I lost you there." from Georgia.
Whether I'm going to
Flying the
NYU
coop.
or not,
Right.
I am
Exactly.
not leaving this city.
Yeah. And we walked in the financial aid office and they basically gave me a full ride, and we were just like crying in the financial aid office. And
My baby gets to go to
it
Liver
was
Dreams.
crazy. Yeah, because I had really good grades, and NYU was big on also academics as well as talent scholarships, and I ended up getting both, so it was awesome. And then
Amazing.
I became an RA, and I was a tour guide, so I could offset the housing costs, and yeah.
So for those people going on tours at NYU, you never know, that tour guide might end up being a
Exactly.
big-time Broadway star.
Oh, I loved being a tour guide so much.
I was a tour guide on my college campus, too.
I know. I wish I could still remember. I had the really funny facts. I can't really remember them now.
I feel like that would make a fun web series.
Yeah.
Like, a college tour guide and like the stories they tell to entertain themselves. The thing that we had at my college is that you could give campus tours, but then they also had something called lunch tours, which just meant you would have lunch with a prospective student and they could ask you anything. And the admissions office paid for lunch.
Fierce.
And I didn't have to really remember any specific facts or even walk. I was like, sweet. I get to sit and eat and just
for free?
like, get to know somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my big thing. You were still a student at NYU when you auditioned for Bring It On, yeah?
Yeah, I was in the middle of my junior year, and the foundation I was talking about earlier, Broadway Dreams, was doing a showcase of all of their best students from the summer intensives. They bring them to New York for a showcase, essentially like a college showcase, but it's for agents and casting directors.
You were like, I'm already here, bitches.
Yeah, I was like, I'm here, I'm ready. And I was singing a song with Paul Kanan. Do you know Paul?
I don't.
He's an amazing, hilariously funny man. He was in Kinky Boots. He was the original like tumbler in heels and Kinky Boots in the ensemble.
Oh, yeah, I know
Paul,
who
he's
he
like,
is.
It Works Every Time,
Yeah,
and Legally Blonde.
totally.
He's a Jerry Mitchell
Staple.
Yeah, staple. So I've known him for years and years, and we were singing Queen's "Somebody to Love" as I was just screaming and living my Queen dreams. And Bernie from Bernie Telsey was in the audience, and the next day they were like, "We want you to come in for this new musical that we're developing," and that was Bring It On.
So you didn't even go through like you got an agent, the agent connected with a casting director. It was just the casting director saw you singing Queen.
Yeah.
And was like, yes, Queen.
Yeah.
Come on in. So what was the audition process like for that? Was it pretty standard? Did you go through a lot of callbacks?
No, I went in one time, and I don't know why. I'm a terrible musical theater student, but I don't think I really knew. I didn't know what everybody looked like, which was good because it was Lin-Manuel, Tom Kitt, Amanda Green, Jeff Whitty, Andy Blankenbuehler, all just sitting behind a table, and I think I just must have not known what they look like and been like, oh, those are producers or something.
Wasn't
or
like the pre-internet days. I mean, I
Yeah,
know the internet
well,
was around then, but it was
was
not
around.
what it
Yeah.
is now.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was just dumb.
Lynn had Twitter. But,
Yeah.
and I had Twitter, but I don't
Yeah.
think anybody else.
Right.
Plus,
But-
you were in school. Like, it's not like you were
Yeah,
rushing
I was
shows every
inundated.
morning.
Yeah. And so they asked for a pop rock song, and
And you were like, I have some Queen in my back pocket.
well, I didn't. Another naive moment on my part. I sang the beginning of Skid Row from Little Shop of Horrors. I was like, oh, love goes off at 7, and you start on time. And it was like, what? That is not pop rock. Like, if they wanted a pop rock song.
It's pop.
I know, but it was just so funny. And I have no business singing that song at all. Like, it was, looking back, I'm like, what the heck was I doing? Well, clearly it worked. But
Sometimes not knowing the rules and breaking them because you didn't know any better
Yeah.
is the greatest gift that you can have.
yeah. And then.
Because obviously you did something right.
Right, I did something right, and then I had to go back in one more time. I think just because Amanda Green was like, can you bring in Chain of Fools by Aretha Franklin? And this was like in the span of 3 days. So like I went in, I feel like on a Tuesday, and then I had to go back in on a Thursday for the final. And I had to read with some people. But I lost my voice in between on the Wednesday.
Well,
and I was devastated. I probably was like I was in college. It was the winter time. I got this big audition that just came out of nowhere and dropped out of the sky. Right. I probably like
you're a full-time student.
Yeah,
try to, like,
and I
cram
never
for
lose my voice.
exams
Like I had never lost my voice ever. And Rachel Hoffman was casting it, who I've worked with at Broadway Dreams as well for a long time at this point. I was texting with her and I was like, what should I do? And she was like, just come in, we'll tell them that you're sick. And I had to sing, I sang Lauryn Hill because I literally had nothing, and I was like, show me my pain with his finger, like literally down in the basement. But they saw what they needed to see the first time, thank goodness, because I had nothing. And then I ended up getting good at reading, and I did that on my holiday break in between junior year. That's
like a perfect example of how it probably at the moment seemed like the worst thing that could ever possibly have happened, but it turned into the best thing that could have happened, because then maybe they got to see something they didn't know they were looking for.
Yeah.
And you know what? You could have canceled. You could have been like, I can't make it. Right. I lost my voice. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But you went and you showed them what you could, and I have goosebumps. Aww. I love stories like that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And then you made your Broadway debut. Did you have to drop out of NYU?
Yeah. Well, because we did a tour before Broadway.
Right.
Yeah. We actually did a world premiere in Atlanta, which is my hometown, which was a freaking crazy experience as well. Like my first professional job I booked right back at home was so cool. I probably had like 80 people come to see the show.
Did you live at home while you were doing it?
No, I say I'm from Atlanta, but I'm actually from Cumming, Georgia, which is about an hour northeast of Atlanta. So it would have been
too far to commute.
Yeah, it would have been, especially in Atlanta traffic, way too hard. But that was pretty cool. So we did the world premiere in Atlanta, and Rachel Hoffman was kind of like, girl, this is going to go. You need to get out of school. And everyone was super supportive. NYU was very supportive. And I dropped out middle of my junior year.
And you never looked back.
And I never looked back. Yeah, and so we did a 13-city tour before we came to Broadway.
You were the mascot, right?
Yes.
Or Bridget was
Bucky the Parrot.
The mascot. And I love that because you went on to play a different kind of parrot or parrot head. You've had two back-to-back shows. No, not back-to-back. If Then was in the middle.
Yeah.
But
lots of parrots.
I definitely made a joke about parrot head when you were doing Margaritaville. But let's talk If Then first. Were you in Bring It On through the entire run? And then how long between that and If Then?
I did the first reading of If Then during Bring It On.
Got it.
So Bring It On was June 2012 to December 2012, and I believe in November I did the first reading, or one of the first readings of If Then. And
Bring It On ran less than a year?
Yeah, I only ran less than 6 months.
I saw it 4 times.
Yeah.
Man, I am a crazy person. I mean,
no.
Well, good crazy.
Yeah, good
right?
crazy. We'll take
but
that crazy.
when I think about that, like I think about shows like American Psycho, which ran for 7 weeks, and I saw it 7 times.
Really?
Yeah, I saw.
I really loved that show.
I loved it too. I've never wanted to direct before, but I really want to direct a production of American Psycho. And I know Duncan Cheek pretty well, and I've been talking to him about it. My dream is, this is total tangent, by the way. You know, a lot of it takes place in a New York City club that actually existed called Tunnel. And the club has shut down, but I don't think there's anything permanent in that space. And I want to rent it out for a weekend and do a site-specific.
Well, you better hurry up. You just announced that to the world.
I know. I mean, whatever. I sort of feel like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If somebody else wants to do it, great.
Yeah.
You know, they can take it. It's not like it would
produce.
make any money anyway. Like, I can't even imagine. It's on 12th Avenue and like Chelsea. Just renting it out for a weekend would cost way more money than I could ever raise. So let somebody else do it.
Okay.
I'd just be happy to have another production to go see.
Okay, great.
But yeah, I also saw Groundhog Day 7 times. 7 seems to be like
I love it.
my
It's
usual
your lucky number.
I do a lot of rushing. And I like to schedule interviews with people in shows that I love because then I can say to the press department, well, I'm going to need to see them in the role before I can do the interview.
There you go.
And it sounds like I'm being manipulative, but that's really true. Like, you're the first person I think I've ever interviewed about a role that I hadn't seen them in.
Well, it's a good excuse.
It's a good excuse, and also I've known you so long, and I've seen the show so many times that I felt like we could do it. I'm hoping that the press department will still let me come back and see you. I say this as I'm doing my best batting of my eyelashes and like finger in my dimple at the press rep who's here. Okay, so you're doing double duty with being in Bring It On and doing the reading of If Then. And then did you just like seamlessly transition from one to the next?
Yeah, I think there was about we did a workshop after Bring It On closed, and I think there was a few months in between. And then If Then was a pretty fast-tracked process, so we did that reading in November, and then I think we did a workshop in March or April, and then September we went to the National Theater in DC to do the out-of-town tryout. And then we came to Broadway the following year.
Was that a pretty tight-knit cast?
Yes, it was amazing.
I feel like, I don't know where I got this sense. Maybe it's because so many of the original cast went on the tour, but I just remember feeling like it was in the ethos of New York that the If Then cast was even more of a family than most Broadway casts become.
It was pretty magical. We all just really clicked super well, and it was because a lot of us started from the very beginning with it. I think that plays a lot into it too. We just went through the entire development of the show together, with the exception of a few people, but everybody fit in really nicely. And it was such a love letter to New York, that show, and being in New York doing it, and like
Plus,
with those legends.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, Bring It On had so many. It was like 20 people making their Broadway debuts or something.
It was 32.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't even remember that the cast was that big. But
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, now that I think about it.
And
Yeah, so 32 Broadway debuts. And then I know If Then probably had a few, but the leads were like, I mean, these are as heavy hitters as you can get. You know, it's Idina Menzel, LaShawns, Anthony Rapp, Jen Colella. It just like doesn't get any bigger.
Yeah.
How was doing a show that was that was like led by such powerhouse vets different than doing it with so many people who were new?
I think I just was wide-eyed and bushy-tailed from the get-go with If Then, and it was interesting coming off Bring It On. I got such a excitingly amazing opportunity to have my Broadway debut be a principal role, and then I jumped into If Then, which was in the ensemble. But there were no qualms at all going from playing Bridget to If Then, because I was like, this is going to be a masterclass every single day, and that's what it was. And every single person in that company on the heavy hitter side were such consummate professionals, and there were no diva mentalities at all, which is something I sort of expected coming into it. But that it wasn't that at all, and that played into the loving family aspect of it. But they came to work, they did their job, they had fun doing it. They're still so passionate about doing it, even having done the bajillion shows that they share amongst each other.
Yeah.
Like, it just, it was a good synergy amongst everyone. And that was different because I think, I don't know, it was just, there was a lot of history behind it all, and a different appreciation, whereas doing Bring It On we were just literal children getting catapulted into this
literally catapulted
crazy world.
I mean,
and we went on tour first,
right.
So just like a bunch of 20 and 21-year-olds on tour and some like 19-year-olds.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy.
I can only imagine it was like, imagine the craziest summer camp you ever went
Yeah, it
on.
was Broadway
and then-
High School.
Yeah, or like your orientation week of college, except for a year.
Except for 9 months, yeah.
Geez, I'm glad that I'm glad everybody survived.
I'm glad everyone survived too.
I guess the good thing about having an HO week schedule is that you have to be disciplined. You can't
Yes.
party quite as hard as you would because like in college you can always skip.
But
a
our
class
cheerleaders
or-
found a way. They're the kings and queens of party. And on tour, I was like, how can you? Because they would come in and just like have to tumble and be thrown 30 feet in the air, having just like partied so hard the night before.
The
and
things you can do when you're
miraculous,
19.
miraculous.
Was there ever any barfing in the wings?
Oh gosh, I actually had food poisoning one time in Bring It On, and I was barfing in between scenes.
Oh my gosh, you didn't barf in the parrot head, did you?
No, I did not barf in the parrot. Thank God.
Imagine?
I was in the parrot. The parrot brought it on because it's so hot, and then
Yeah.
I had to go off stage.
Yikes. Okay, so this is something I definitely should know, but I can't remember. Did you go on tour with If Then?
No, I did not.
Okay. Because I know
That's
that.
when I went to do Gigantic.
Right, which I also saw twice.
Biggest fan.
Yeah, I am. I'm your biggest fan. Gigantic was such a cute and important show.
Yeah.
It had a different name at
Fat
first,
Camp.
right? Yeah. Were you in it when it was called Fat Camp?
No, I only joined in the Vineyard off-Broadway production.
Got it. Right.
which
I had
was the last
seen it
iteration of it.
initially at Nymph when it was called Fat Camp. And it was just like a love letter to body positivity
Yeah.
and to like the camp experience. And I wish/hope that it still has a life. Like, do you know if it was ever made available for licensing?
I think it was.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was, but I'd have to double check. I hope it has more of a life. It kicked around for so long, and I think it's so good. And those writers, Randy Blair and Tim Drucker, are hysterical. And I just think the show is so great. Like, it was such a departure for me. I got to play the straight girl, the ingenue, the just wanted to be in love, and that's something I never get to do.
Right.
Because for some reason people don't think that curvy people can fall in love.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of controversy around body shaming on Broadway just in the last couple of weeks. And I think there's actually a great Instagram account that I follow called the Broadway Positivity Project.
Oh,
and I think
love
it's a fan who just decided that, like, I like to say that if you want to be an influencer, figure out the influence you want to have on the world and start putting that out there.
Yeah.
Like, being an influencer should not be about getting photographed with, the latest electronic gadget or
Right.
like getting paid to promote something you don't actually care about. It should be about choosing the kind of, like, being the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And this woman, who I don't know personally, has decided that that's the influence she wants to have.
I love that.
And I think that it's important for audiences and for actors to see that, like, we're more than what we look like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out if Gigantic, I'm just going to Google it really fast, if it's available, because I do feel like, can you imagine if that was performed in schools?
It would be so lovely. It's a little raunchy for high school.
Yeah, I
but-
guess that's true. Maybe local
they can
community
edit it.
theaters. Well, anyway, I don't need to be Googling in the middle of a live radio show.
That's okay.
Speaking of, a lot of people don't know that Laura Heywood Interviews is, in fact, a live radio show because it's available as a free podcast. But it only becomes a free podcast a week after it is live on dnrstudios.com. That's DNR, 3 letters. dnrstudios.com/Laura. And I did that really consciously. I wanted to make sure that it was available for free to everybody, even though every consultant in the world is like, that is a terrible business model. But I read this great book by Amanda Palmer, who I think it's called The Art of Asking. And she was like, if you just tell people what you need, like, a lot of times they'll give it to you. So I'm like, I'm going to give you my show as a gift to you. And if you find you do have $6.95 a month to help me keep making it, it's kind of like a Patreon or something, except you just give it right to the radio studios. And that way I can keep doing it, but it's not a quid pro quo. It's like, you don't have to pay for it, but if you wanted to, that would be awesome. So whether or not you listen to it on a podcasting app versus on the player at DNR Studios, if you have a few bucks to throw at it, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Commercial over. Let's talk about Margaritaville.
Let's.
Talk about iconic music.
Yes.
It doesn't get bigger than Jimmy Buffett.
No.
It must have been so fun to sing those songs every day.
It really was. It started from the top down, too. Jimmy was just such a beacon of light and love, and he truly practices what he preaches in his music. And he was in the entire developmental process, and that just trickled into the company and the show that was just a little happy island musical that wasn't trying to be anything more than that. And we enjoyed ourselves so much every time we got to do it. And it was just a truly feel good show. And
how
that's
many
what we
margaritas
celebrated.
a week would you anticipate you were drinking? Because I just imagine, I imagine the backstage of that, having one of those, like, have you ever been to a wedding that has like a chocolate fountain? I just imagine like a constant flow
Just
of
on
margaritas.
draft.
Yeah,
Margaritas on
exactly.
draft.
Except not draft, because draft would
Then
be
they would be-
too boring. I really imagine a margarita fountain, almost like big enough to swim in, that you just like, you take your empty water bottle and you just fill it up from the fountain.
I know, just a live like hose from our dressing room.
Yeah,
And our dressing-
exactly.
No, I don't think we didn't have a ton of margaritas because we always had them at every press event. So I think we kind of were just like, oh, we'll get them at our press events.
Right.
But we were at the Marquee Theater, which is humongous in comparison to pretty much every other Broadway backstage. So we had a green room, which is unheard of, and
Oh yeah, I visited you in the green room.
yeah, it was a cool green room, and like we had a bar set up, Escape to Margaritaville bar set up that was a part of a boat, like the front part of a boat, and it was essentially for any VIPs that came to the show for them to entertain them in there. But we got to
I didn't get to.
we got
I
to
didn't
reap
get
the
see that
benefits.
part. I
Not many-
did
not many
drink
people
quite
did.
a few margaritas at Escape to Margaritaville.
I know. I heard they were
though.
strong. I never had one from the front of house.
The one story that I love is that I think Cinco de Mayo was the highest demand for tickets for that show ever, because people just wanted margaritas all day, every day.
Sure.
I went the third preview, I think, and the margaritas sold out.
Yeah.
Like, it was demand that the bars had never seen, like the concession
they
companies.
continued to break their own record at the bar, like of any show that ever been in the Marquee. It
It's
was
funny
not surprising.
because I wonder. I think that the financials of that is like it's a different company, but it would be an interesting business model for producers to provide their own, like to actually pay back their, like the nut of the show, not with
know.
ticket sales, but with
Right.
bar sales. You could almost like give the tickets away if the bar sales. They say that's how movie theaters make all their money, is that
Oh.
movie tickets don't pay the bills, but the
refreshments.
yeah,
I believe
the
that because
popcorn
they're $1
and
million.
candy. Yeah, exactly. That would be an interesting business model for Broadway.
Yeah.
I loved you in that show in particular. You were in the ensemble and you covered one of the leads. I unfortunately did not get to see you go on in the role that Lisa Howard did, but you did go on, right?
Yeah, I went it twice.
But your ensemble track, I don't know whether it was the way it was written or it was just that you are such a brilliant performer. But speaking of
Probably the latter.
Speaking of showcases, I felt like I was watching you do a Saturday Night Live audition reel, because you had like 8 different characters. They were all amazing. There was like a drunk lady at the beach. There was a like heavy metal keyboard player in a small town bar. I can't even remember all of them, but I was like, I really hope that either if the show was filmed or that you did something backstage where you did like a little straight to camera in each of those characters. I feel like
I didn't think ahead.
damn it, Ryan.
I know.
Do you know if the show was like ever captured for the Lincoln Center archives or anything?
It was not.
Oh no.
I know.
this is the rare case that I'm going to say, I hope somebody bootlegged it. I never, ever encourage that, by the way. And I'm not encouraging it. But I really do feel like, there are those shows where like one actor will play all the different characters in their own sketch show.
That's what I feel like Ryan Duncan, did you see Getting the Band Back Together?
Yes.
I think I thought it was the most brilliant performance I had seen in like several years.
Well, his keyboard player was...
I know. He forget my keyboard player. I thought he was like a revelation to Broadway.
I love Ryan Duncan.
He's and so sweet.
I mean, maybe the
hysterical.
answer is that...
Should we do a spin-off of the two of our keyboard players?
Both. I just got goosebumps. Both of your names are Ryan.
I know.
Yes.
I think I scared him after
Ryan
I saw
on
the show because I was
and
so
Ryan on
obsessed with him. But I won't say anything because I didn't say anything as my keyboard player. He just does all the singing.
And you can just be like,
Yeah, no, that all just came about because our writers of Margaritaville, Greg Garcia and Mike O'Malley, are hysterical TV writers, and Mike O'Malley is a big television actor.
I know.
Well.
I was like, what is Kurt's dad from Glee doing here? And I was like, oh, he wrote it.
He wrote it. They're hysterical. And one day, early on in the process, they had me, they're like, Ryan, you're playing the TSA agent. And I just gave her a Southern accent. And then they were like, oh, she's going to be weird. So they just gave me some more lines, and just, it was a true testament to like make bold choices and the gifts will come, because I just gave her a Southern accent. And then she said, like, had like taglines that people just still to me on the street are like, Trey. It was like, they're like, ma'am, just put your phone in the Trey. Like, he was like, why is she saying Trey twice? Like, why? Just
and was that scripted, or
like
you
that.
just threw that in there one day, or?
Well, it was not scripted initially, and then we threw it in there. Like, I think it was Mike. No, I forget if it was Greg or Mike. And they kind of wanted to slip it in under Chris Ashley, because Chris Ashley, first of all, is one of the most amazing people I've ever worked with. He's such an actor's director and just a truly amazing artist, and I love him dearly. And he had the task of just making sure that this larger than life island musical didn't get too over the top, and he just really he infused it with so much honesty and truth. And I think that was a moment where Mike and Greg were like, okay, we want you to say Trey, but we don't know if we'll get it past Chris Ashley. But we got it past, and he kept it.
I love that show as a showcase for Ryan Redmond.
Thank you. And I don't play the piano at all, which makes the keyboard player even more hysterical. And also, the keyboard was never plugged into anything.
Right.
There was no power connected to it, and it was a fantastic moment for me in the show, because everybody is just dancing their butts off in Cheeseburger in Paradise, like doing the most athletic.
Somebody might even be flying.
Yeah, the most athletic Kelly Divine choreography you've ever seen, and I'm just in the back, just like hardly doing anything in a heavy metal wig.
You're still having a moment as an actor.
Yeah,
and that's what makes, I think, I love watching people in their background scenes, because some people phone it in, and you have literally never phoned it in.
I don't think I'm capable of that.
Which I think brings us perfectly into Frozen. Yes. Because Olaf is a beloved character. I mean, I saw 14 Olafs on my way to the studio this morning.
I know, there's so many in Times Square.
There's some really gross ones. I'm just saying, like, if you want to see Olaf in New York City, please spring for a ticket to Frozen.
Please
don't go near those yucky, fake, like, off-brand characters in Times Square. Also, I spend a fair amount of time in the Disney parks. I may or may not be going tomorrow to Orlando. And there, like, the amount of Olaf merch is crazy town.
There's a lot.
Do you need me to pick anything up for you?
I think I am good on Olaf merch.
Does everybody bring you, like, Olaf-related presents?
Our merch team hooks me up, especially when I joined. They were just like, here, all these things. And then I knew I got Frozen like around Thanksgiving of last year, so my family just inundated me. I've got Olaf pajamas, I have mugs, I have pens, pins and pens.
Oh, well, don't say pins to me because I am a Disney pin collector.
okay.
And if you ever decide to
got a
get
few
rid of
pins.
anything, I even last time I went to Disneyland in California for my birthday in April, and I came back with the cutest emoji Anna pin. And I was like, I must give it to Patty. And
Cute.
she probably has more Anna stuff than she can handle. But
Yes.
I'm
sure she'd love that.
I gave it to her.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
She did love it, I'm sure.
I'm sure she did. I delivered it via our mutual friend, Bobby Creighton, who is...
Weaseltown.
Yeah, I always call him Weaseltown.
Me
And
too.
he even, just on the street, I'll be like, what up, Weaseltown? And he goes, it's Whistleton.
Yep.
Which is a line from the show that cracks me up every single time. Speaking of people who should get a spin-off. I want to
Bobby
know
Creighton.
the backstory of Westleton. Although Bobby Creighton is now there's what they're calling a pre-Broadway run of Cagney, the musical he wrote and stars in as Jimmy Cagney. So big things ahead for Weaseltown.
Yes.
Are you in Frozen indefinitely? Can people just get tickets?
Indefinitely, yes. Forever and ever.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you have a contract end date. I'm not asking you about that, but for the time being,
Yes.
people can come and see you.
Yeah,
in
I'll be
Frozen.
there.
And I will be there at some point soon too. What's been the best thing about joining a cast already in progress?
The best thing, let's see. Well, when I joined in February, Joe Carroll was also joining as Hans, and Noah was, he came up from the ensemble to play Kristoff. He had done the show prior, but he replaced Jelani. And I've known Noah for about 10 years. So,
Whoa.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
Was he a Broadway Dreamer?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was pretty amazing to get to jump in to the show with him. And we share a dressing room now, which has been really exciting. And it was just really cool to get to put my own spin on Olaf. And everyone always asks me, was it hard to jump into the role when it was previously played by a man? But I think it almost gave me a little bit of an advantage because I wasn't able to really emulate anything that was previously done because I am a female. So I just really got to create my own version of this beloved character that everyone knows and loves, and just sort of infuse some Ryann into him, but hopefully still maintaining, the Disney magic of him. And he just has so many good one-liners, and he's...
Do you have a favorite?
Well, I don't want to give it away, but the part when he breaks apart in the show is my favorite part to do.
I wonder if anyone at Disney thought about this element of your casting. But the thing that I love the most about it is I feel like your casting is a direct reference to the line in where the two little girls say, a little bit of you, a little bit of me. Because they are creating, I just gave myself goosebumps again. Because I feel like they are inventing this boy pronoun character, but it's made of them.
Yeah.
And when little girls play pretend, their imaginary friend might be a little boy, but he's still made of their essence. And so, yeah, Olaf's a boy, but he's made of these two little girls and their love for each other.
Yeah.
And I just feel like having you at the helm of him reinforces the idea that he is a representation of the love between two little girls.
Exactly.
Which is what the whole point of the show is, right?
Yeah.
Is that, I'm just going to assume everybody's seen the movie and that it's not a spoiler.
Don't give it away.
It's not a spoiler to say that it's a show about the love between two sisters. And there's something really synergistic about having a woman play Olaf. Not to mention the fact that it's just, he is so funny and you are so funny. And I was delighted when I learned about your casting, and it wasn't because of your gender. It's because you're the perfect actor to play that role. I want to go back to talking about Broadway Dreams.
Okay.
Because if anybody is living their Broadway dreams, you are. And
It's me.
I can imagine that that when the people who founded the Broadway Dreams Foundation like dreamed their wildest dreams. It was that someone would come up through their program, go on to star on Broadway, and then become a mentor in the program. And you have really accomplished that.
Yeah.
At the end of every show, which we are coming up in the last few minutes of the show, I like to not only shine a light on a cause that's important to my guest, but also to commit to making a donation to that cause.
Oh.
So I'll be making a donation to Broadway Dreams today in your honor.
Thank you.
And I am going to encourage every person who's listening to do so as well. The idea being that even if it's just a couple of bucks, if we all do it, especially if we all do it at the same time, it can make a big difference.
Yes.
My little catchphrase for it is a whole bunch of drops can make a big splash.
Yeah.
So if we each put a little drop in the bucket,
That'd be awesome.
we may end up funding like that showcase, for example. You were already in New York, so you didn't need to be flown out and put up to take part in that. But there is a kid in a city outside of New York who's doing the Broadway Dreams curriculum, who's good enough to get seen by and cast by Broadway casting directors and agents. But the funding has to come from somewhere.
Yep.
And we as audience members and fans are going to be the ones that benefit from seeing the talent on stage. So why not skip a Starbucks one day and throw $5 to the Broadway Dreams Foundation?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I want to just read from their website because I love the way that this is put. The Broadway Dreams Foundation empowers aspiring young artists through performing arts training with a focus on acting, voice, and dance disciplines, and program intensives are offered nationally and internationally throughout the year. These are the values that the professionals that these describe the professionals. They assess where all students are in their developmental process and where they need to be, teach students practical skills that can be applied immediately to elevate performance levels, and guide students to achieve physical, emotional, and artistic self-awareness that can be channeled effectively in their work. What it doesn't specifically say, but that I know personally to be true from experience with Broadway Dreamers and with the foundation itself, is that skills like physical, emotional, and artistic self-awareness, yes, it can be channeled effectively in work, but it's also totally necessary for like healthy human existence. And whether or not these kids make it to Broadway and are in their 4th Broadway show and are starring in this massive Disney property with huge visibility, being a part of Broadway Dreams can only be good for them no matter what their future holds.
Do you want to be a board member at Broadway Dreams?
I am on the board of a nonprofit already, and all my energy goes there. But I certainly am going to do my part today. And if there's ever anything that I can do that doesn't involve like fundraising beyond today, we
got to get you and come and teach a social media.
I would
class.
absolutely love to donate my time to do that.
Oh, thank you so much.
And because for me, like I am living my Broadway dreams.
Yeah.
And I think that. Acting, voice, and dance are not my disciplines, but I am making a living on Broadway and doing it in a way that I never expected. And certainly as a child, I mean, it's one thing to say like, well, social media didn't exist, right? But I also didn't know about producers. I didn't know about, front of house staff. There's so many different ways to live one's Broadway dreams. And if I can be a part of this incredible organization in terms of like teaching people that you don't have to be that specific kind of triple threat to make it in this industry. Yeah, seriously. Sign
You're
me up.
hired.
Great. I'm hired for my salary of $0 because if you did pay me, I'd donate it right back to Broadway Dreams.
You're really hired.
The website is BroadwayDreams.org, and you can follow them on Twitter at bway_dreams. So please go and give a few bucks to them.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to add about Broadway Dreams?
I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, but
I read the website
out
loud.
But you added a little flavor in there. But yeah, most importantly, they aim to create good humans, just all around good humans. And I feel like that's what sets them apart from any other arts organization. I'm a little biased, but it's truly a family that keeps on giving, even when you graduate high school and move on to different parts of your life. It's always something you can come back to, and this business is all about who you know. It's cliche, but it really is. And Broadway Dreams creates a network for performers and humans alike to just thrive in the arts.
Plus, there have been some pretty incredible like benefit events that you guys have put on. So if nothing else, go to BroadwayDreams.org and like sign up for the mailing list so you can find out when these concerts are coming up. The kind of talent that this organization attracts for those fundraising events, you don't even have to really care where the money is going because the show's so
shows are really good.
you know, and that's the best kind of benefit event because literally everybody benefits. The organization benefits. Hopefully the performers benefit from the community, and the audience members benefit from having, you know, a night out at the theater, which we're all, let's face it, like we're all spending too much money on. Not too much. We're all spending plenty of money on that anyway. We might as well do it to support an organization like Broadway Dreams. Ryan.
Yes.
You can be seen on Broadway at the St. James 8 times a week.
Yes.
Unless there's a blackout.
Unless there is a blackout.
Which hopefully that only happens like once every 44 years. You know that blackout was...
On the same day in 77.
It was like I think it was the 44th anniversary.
So crazy.
Is that the right math?
77 to 2019.
No, that doesn't
45th?
sound right. Yeah, well...
46th maybe?
No,
46. I can't do math.
Wow.
This is
I'm
why
usually
I perform.
pretty good at math.
42.
In my head, but yeah, 42.
42.
I think 42. It is the answer to, what do they say in Hitchhiker's Guide? It's the answer to life, something, and everything. Man, I'm falling apart
well for us over here.
It's too bad that the live show didn't end 1 minute earlier because I was doing pretty well. Follow Ryann at RYANN REDS. That's Ryann Reds on Twitter and Instagram. Go see her in Frozen on Broadway, and support the Broadway Dreams Foundation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for
I love
having
you.
me.
I can't wait to see you in Frozen.
Yay.
And I'll come and see you. I've seen you in everything else at least twice. I guess I better come see this in at least twice.
Yep. Exactly.
And keep me posted on how I can help with Broadway Dreams and everything else you got going on in your life.
Thank you.
You're the best, Ryann.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Laura Heywood Interviews, everybody. I'll see you next time.